See this nice blonde color right here? Well, let me tell you a little secret. And I'm sure you can imagine, this is not the natural color of this mannequin hair. This is down here, the darker hair color. So what happens when you color your hair blonde, just color your hair in general? Well, it's a chemical process. You know, you have to mix chemicals, the hair dye, the peroxide. You have to mix the developer, and a whole slew of other things are happening. You know, you could be lightening your hair, it could be just depositing your hair, but you know, you're opening up the cuticle layer of the hair, depositing the color in, and then, you know, depending again, if you're lightening or darkening or just trying to cover gray hair, whatever it is, there's a process that's happening to your hair. Now the thing is hair color works in a variety of different ways. So everyone has a natural hair color, right? Even myself, you know, if I had one hair on my head, it would have its own natural hair color, whether it's blonde, brown, and now this can get really, really, really complex. And I used to teach hair coloring for L'Oreal Professional many, many, many years ago. So I have a good understanding about hair coloring and how it all works. But it's a chemical process, all right? Now, there's things that like henna and just, you know, semi-permanent colors that you're just literally depositing and you're not really exposing or opening the cuticle layer. There's no really deposit. However, it's coating, okay? It's coating the hair and depositing tones that sometimes wash out in a couple of days, you know, overnight, things like that, because you're not really, there's no depositing into the cuticle, right? Or the cortex, the medulla. There's all sorts of, you know, 3 different layers of hair in the scalp, right? So basically what happens when you go lighter is you're now adjusting and changing the natural pigment of your hair. This is an issue, and I hope this really resonates with a lot of you. I know typically you get people who've got, you know, fairly dark hair. Let's just say even something like this. Let's just say this is like a medium brown, for example, and you want very, very light blonde hair. You may go to the store and, you know, see all these hair color boxes on the shelf and be like, oh, here's a nice blonde one. I'm just going to buy that. And it says light blonde on it. You go home, you mix up the blonde color, you put it on your hair, on your scalp, and within a half an hour, you wash it out and you look like a pumpkin, okay? Your hair is bright orange, it's, you know, very yellow, it's brassy, it's dark red. It's just not what you were expecting, because hair color can only lighten up to about 4 levels. The darker your hair is naturally, those 4 levels will only go so light. So when you think about a hair color, you know, if you start off at, say, darkest brown or black, then you have like black, darkest brown, you know, dark brown, brown, light brown. So you may be going to a light brown, but you're also exposing what's called your natural pigment. Every person has a natural underlying pigment. Red, red-orange, orange, yellow, pale yellow, blah, blah, and it goes on, all right? It ends at like pale yellow or palest yellow. So when you're lightening your hair, especially when it's at darker levels, you're exposing the underlying pigment. That's why it looks very orange, very brassy. So the only solution to that is, one, you know, a double process or pre-lightening, or AKA bleaching your hair. This is a bleach job right here. This whole thing, for me to get this hair this light, I had to use a lightener or hair bleach, right? It's specifically a lightener designed for hair. I'm not talking going buy bleach from the store that you're using to clean the house, okay? This is specifically, you know, products, and you can get these in beauty supply stores, but however, sometimes they can really, really, really dry out your hair and damage your hair. It can cause breakage, make your hair feel very dry and brittle, because what's happening is you're stripping the hair of its oils, of its natural pigment, you're exposing the underlying pigment, and then you're getting it so light that you're, you know, kind of breaking through that barrier and just exposing the hair, and you're just getting it and pushing it to its max. So usually the hair is going to be like, what have you done to me? You just destroyed my hair. Then you can then put maybe that's like a double process. That's why you hear that. You bleach it out or you lighten it, and then you put a toner or the color of choice on top of that. So if I were to put a bright red or blue, green, whatever color on top of this, it would stand out because I've stripped away all the color. And what's going to happen is when I put that vibrant color on, it's going to basically be that color. Now what happens is, say you're very, very blonde and you want to go back to your natural color. You can't just put blonde and then a dark brown. It's going to turn your hair green. It's going to be a disaster because your hair is missing that underlying natural pigment of red. So you then have to do what we call a filler in the professional, world of doing hair, where you're filling or replacing the natural pigment that was stripped away. So you would use a color that has a lot of auburn or red tones into it, and then it's a whole other process. You repigment it, you leave it on for 20 minutes, you kind of blot it off, and then you put the color back on top. So you're depositing back in what was stripped. Again, this gets really hardcore when it comes to like technical terms with hair coloring. But just say you're a consumer, you want to go blonde. Chances are you cannot just take a box of hair color and go from dark brown, black to this light of a color. It's just very, very difficult because you're going to expose all your natural pigment. It can only lighten so light, and it's going to be very, very warm and brassy. So don't go to the store and think, and get fooled thinking you can just do that. Again, this is why professional, and like I said, I've worked for L'Oreal mostly in professional, but I did jump over to the consumer side in support. And a lot of times, we'd get phone calls of people, oh, I went to the store and I bought light blonde and my hair is still brown, but it's red. I'm like, well, so it's the same thing I just explained. Most consumers don't know this. Hair coloring is not just a 1, 2, 3. As professionals, we have to go through a lot of training to even understand and get that right color, right? So if you're going to a hair salon, you have a stylist who colors your hair, there's a lot of understanding that goes into the formulation, right? That formula you have, that's your formula. That's made for you, okay? So anyway, that's what happens when you try to go lighter, you try to go blonder. People say, oh, what if I put lemon juice? I mean, some things you can naturally, like the sun. I used to joke and say the sun is a hair colorist. If you spend all day outside, like nonstop in the sun, first of all, it's not good for your skin. But let's just say that you want to sit outside all day and there would be no effects on your skin. Nothing would happen. You'd be totally safe. Your hair would naturally get lighter and lighter and lighter from the sun, especially if, yes, you're spraying like lemon juice on it or you're just sitting out in the sun, because the sun is going to expose and strip away the color. I mean, it's crazy. I've seen it. Sometimes I've said that the sun is the best colorist ever because I'd have clients come in where they'd be getting, say, a light brown as their base color, but they're in the sun so much and it causes some fadage throughout the ends, which ends up looking like their hair was highlighted. So that's where I would just say, wow, thank you, sun. Like, the sun just saved you like $180 or $300 on doing highlights on your hair. So let's leave it and go with it. So I would let the sun's work mesh into the natural hair color. And that was a little trick I used to do and a really cool technique where I would just work with what the sun did. And it was amazing. It would look so natural sometimes. So anyway, so that's the whole point of this video, is really to understand what happens when you color your hair blonde or attempt to color it blonde. It's a big process. There's a lot of theory that goes into it, color theory, understanding what can happen. That's why I say, seek a professional. You can, and there's a lot of you who have really cool hair colors out there. I've seen them over my years in the industry where, you know how to bleach or lighten your hair. You know how to put manic panic or whatever color it is that you want to make your hair look blue or green, whatever. And you know how to do it. You understand it through trial and error. I'm sure you've fried your hair a number of times, but it could cause damage to your hair and it's going to change the texture, especially if you're lightening your hair with bleach. But that's it. So let me know in the comments below your hair color journeys. Have you ever, had that experience where your hair turns bright orange and you're like, what happened? I love to know, and let's get as many comments as we can. If you're interested in purchasing any of my products, like my shampoos and things to help make your hair feel better, then you can use code YouTube20, that's YouTube20 at shop.thesalonguy.com. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you soon.